What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made this. Beautiful, delicious, smoky, juicy, crispy, amazing smoked turducken with some homemade fluffy dinner rolls, lovely fluffy mashed potatoes, some homemade cranberry sauce, a sausage stuffing, green bean casserole, and some gravy to tie it all together. What a spread. Coming up. This is a turkey. Pat it dry. And what I got here is a whole turkey weighing in right about 14 pounds, and I hope it's big enough. And by big enough, I don't mean to feed a lot of people. I mean to be stuffed with 2 other birds. And that's because today we are finally tackling the turducken, something that I did not think was a real thing for the first half of my life. But some people swear by it and eat one every year. And it definitely seems like one of those labor of love kind of situations, or pain in the butt, in other words. But I've never made one before, and if there's ever time to put a lot of effort into a meal, it's around Thanksgiving or upcoming Christmas. So first thing we need to do is get this thing deboned. But taking a look at it, I just took the skin off the back legs to free them up. Always got something hiding in there. Pull that out, save it for later, see if there's anything else hiding in here, or hiding in the top. There it is. All the giblets and whatnot. And if you caught my Thanksgiving video last year, I did in fact debone a turkey and roll it up with some stuffing for a wonderful presentation, so I do have a little bit of experience doing this, but believe it or not, I haven't done it since. But to get started, we're gonna take our knife and just go right down the middle of the backbone and essentially start trying to peel all the skin away, taking as much meat as possible, leaving nothing but carcass and bone left behind, which can be tedious and annoying, but also kind of fun. Tricky little shoulder blade bone up here, always getting in the way. Careful of that little guy. But really, we're just going to take our time because we're in no rush, which is kind of the beauty of doing something like this. So you can do this a good few days in advance, probably even a week. And I don't know about you, but I've cooked a lot of meals for a lot of people before, and I find it's always best to do as much work ahead of time as possible. That way, when the actual day of the event or the party comes, you've already got all your work done. Makes life easier. And the only tricky part about deboning a turkey, or any bird for that matter, is these little leg joints, which I find you can just kind of snap apart once you get down to them. Because once you get those broken out of the socket, it gets a little bit easier. There we go. And now we can continue on. Try and do the same up top here as we continue to just peel away. And just like that, in no time at all, side 1 is done. So now we're gonna do the exact same thing on this side. It's really not that difficult, just kind of following the bones. Don't have to be too pretty because it's all gonna be rolled up anyway. And if you are intimidated by breaking down a bird, I suppose you could spatchcock it first by removing the whole spine. Might make a little more sense to look at it that way. But we're getting close to the bottom on both sides here, so we're just gonna be nice and careful not to go through the skin, because that would ruin our presentation side. Pretty gnarly looking, folks. Little bit of cartilage holding this together right at the bottom here. But there we go, just like that. Nice clean carcass, tail came off with it, and a bunch of bones, which we'll save for making our stock. And with that carcass removed, now we can move on to focusing on the legs and the wings. And for the wings, I think we're gonna just zip these right off, the flats that is. Save those for a little pit snack or throw them in the stock pot. It's not gonna fold in very well. And then we can go through and remove these bones. Very simple, straight bone at this point, so pretty straightforward. Just get underneath it, send that free. Give it a little scrape if you want. And there we go, another bone removed. And now onto this side. Just a nice straight cut. Windy today. As for these back legs, similar process. There's 2 bones, one going this way for the drumstick and then one going this way. And we're just gonna take out this one right here because I think leaving the drumsticks intact will, 1, make life a little easier for us right now, but also make for a good presentation. So just like we did with the carcass and the other 2 wings, just slowly scraping down each side of this bone until we set it free. Get underneath it, snip that out. And there we go, thigh bone removed. So now we repeat for the final bone of this bird anyway. Beautiful. So at this stage in the brutal turkey breakdown, we're gonna go around, give it a once over, see if there's any little bone fragments or anything we may have missed. Definitely left a piece of cartilage in the middle here that I'm gonna have to cut out. And then like a chicken tender, or a turkey tender in this case, we've got this big tendon in there that we gotta try and get out of there. So I'm gonna try to do the old fork trick. Grab that via paper towel, and just take that right on out of there. Don't need that. Gone. And once everything is looking pretty cleaned up, I'm gonna go ahead and fold these tenders down a little bit. Might butterfly this breast open a little bit to make everything laying a little more flat and a little more even. And once assembled, we can come through and trim all this up. But for now, I think turkey is done. That is pretty weird looking. And for those of you that may be unaware, a turducken is a chicken stuffed inside of a duck, stuffed inside of a turkey. So now we're gonna do the exact same thing to this duck. Ooh, orange sauce. Won't be needing that. But just like before, we're gonna start out by patting it dry and checking the inside for anything like this. Nice duck liver, definitely might eat that. What else is hiding? But now it is business as usual. So we're gonna start on the tail down here and just kind of come right up the spine. And I started with the turkey first because this is a lot easier on bigger birds. So you had one test run with the turkey, which is pretty easy. And then we're just gonna get smaller and smaller. But by the end of a day like this, you'll be pretty good at deboning an entire bird. There we go, one leg removed. Smaller birds may be slightly more difficult, but you get through them a lot quicker. And I swear, every time I do this, I always forget about these little bones right here. They kind of blend right in with the wing, and it makes it really hard to find the joints. So once you get that kind of cleaned up, it makes life a whole lot easier. And at this point, we're getting pretty close, so I'm just gonna hold the carcass up and just kind of use the tip and gravity to get this thing to come apart. And there we go, one duck carcass removed. So now, same as last time, take off the flats, debone the drums. But for the duck, we do want to completely debone it, which means we're going to take out this thigh bone like we did on the last one, but we're also going to take out the drumstick, which is pretty straightforward, just like the wing. So much smaller, and the boneyard is starting to grow. And thigh number 2, done. So now we're gonna repeat the process, find those tendons, try and get those out. There's also a bunch of tendons in the legs down here that we can try and take out, but I don't think they're nearly as tough as the turkey leg tendons. But they pull right out. And we're just gonna go around, make sure we didn't miss any cartilage, and make sure this is nice and cleaned up. And don't know if it's necessary, but we'll go ahead and butterfly these breasts down a little bit, just to make it a little bit more even. Something like that, probably clean up some of this extra skin. And just like that, our duck is done. Which means now, you guessed it, all there's left to do is the chicken. And at this point, I think you know what's about to happen. Same as usual. Starting by patting it dry, and then repeating the process one final time. Get that oyster meat out of there, finding that pesky little bone. Carve around the old wishbone up front. And like I was saying earlier, the only one you have to be real careful with is the turkey, because that's the one that's on the outside for presentation purposes. So if you mess up the chicken or the duck, really not the end of the world, but that is looking pretty clean to me. And now we're into pretty familiar territory if you've ever deboned a chicken thigh before. And just like that, in a little under an hour, we've got ourselves a fully deboned turkey, a fully deboned chicken, and a fully deboned duck. So now I'm gonna park these in the fridge. And the reason I'm not building this turducken today is because we also need to make ourselves some stuffing. That's gonna go on the inside to fill up any weird gaps, add some more flavor, and make sure the thing is nice and plump. But in order to make stuffing, we need to make stock, which means we need to roast off all those bones we just got. So let's go ahead and fire up the pit. And we certainly do have a lot of bones. But on the pit we go. I'm opting for the Chud box today for these bones because we're probably gonna be going on the offset with that turducken. And I figure having 2 different kinds of smoke flavor in this dish is gonna be extra tasty. But you could do this in the oven, you could do it on the offset, pellet grill, really, whatever makes life easier or more flavorful. And I doubt we'll need all these bones for one stock, but might as well get them all roasted off anyway. Giblets and all, folks. And this extra duck fat and chicken fat is just gonna drip down onto the coals, giving us that wonderful fat smoke, AKA direct heat flavor. Although some of these livers might be coming off for a little snacky poo. Tell you what, now that is a full pit of bones. So, gonna be cooking around 300 degrees, probably for the next hour or 2 until we get some really good flavor and some really good color on these. So, we'll check back in a couple hours. And after about an hour and a half or so, these bones are looking really good. Got some really nice color on there, definitely got some smoky flavor on there. Didn't take them too far, so they're not too burnt or anything like that. But off the pit these come, and into my handy dandy electric stock pot. This thing is really convenient. Mostly because you can run this thing low and slow all night long, and you can do it outside, so you don't stink up the whole house, which is very much appreciated. And then we're just gonna top that with some hot water. Lid goes on, and we're gonna let that simmer away overnight. And while we're getting ahead on things, let's go ahead and get our bread ready for the stuffing that we're gonna make tomorrow. Which starts out with some white bread. This is some Martin's potato bread, but any bread you've got on hand works out just fine. You can also buy those stuffing bags of bread that's already toasted for you. For me, they're not on the shelves yet. But for making stuffing, we need some dried, toasted, or stale bread. So I'm gonna go ahead and zip the crusts off of all these and go ahead and get that all cubed up. And yes, it is a ridiculous amount of bread. And like I said, you could let these sit out overnight to dry out and stale that away, but I think I'm gonna speed up the process a little bit. Boop. And on to pit number 2 for this cook. Got the old pellet grill fired up to 250 degrees, and we're just gonna dry these out for, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. We're gonna try really hard not to burn any of them, but we'll see what happens. And after an hour or so, this bread is looking nice and dry. Nice gentle cook on that, which is nice. I think when I've done this in years past, I've cooked at higher temps and I've ended up browning and burning some of these. But every 20 minutes or so, I came through and I kind of fluffed these up to make sure that they all dried evenly. And they are, in fact, nice and dried. So off they come. One overnight later, this stock has been bubbling away all night long. And then when I woke up this morning, I came through and I chucked in a couple of carrots, well, one big carrot, as well as one onion sliced in half, and a couple stalks of celery. And they've cooked for about 2 hours at this point. Pretty soft. I think they've given us all the flavor they can. And then about an hour ago, I came and I threw in some aromatics, including some thyme, some rosemary, some sage, and a bay leaf. And typically in the past, I'll just throw everything in from the get-go, but I was watching a video the other day of someone making stock, and they said by adding the veg later in the cook, they're not gonna get nearly as broken down and mushy, clouding up your stock. And same thing with the aromatics, by adding them right toward the end, their flavors are going to be a little bit more prominent. But of course, you don't have to add any veg or aromatics, but I think for a nice holiday meal like this, having some nice holiday flavors is always nice. So now we need to go ahead and take everything out and strain this stock. Oh yeah, all those bones have given us all they got to give. Smells really good too. Smelling like Thanksgiving. And if you've seen any of my other videos about Thanksgiving, I think I've done like 5 or 6 at this point. Making this stock is the most crucial step because it's gonna go into our gravy, it's gonna go into our stuffing, and it is so much better than anything you're gonna get out of a carton. Oh, you already had the bones on hand anyway. And once all the major particulates are out, I'm gonna go through this finer screen here just to catch any of the tiny bits. Beautiful. And at this stage, what I should do is park this in the fridge with a lid on it for a while. That way the fat will all float to the top and solidify, so then I can take it off in one big chunk, thus defatting this stock for a nice clean stock. And that's what I'm gonna do with most of this, but I do need about a quart for the gravy we're gonna make, and I don't wanna wait. So I'm busting out the old pancake dropper, because it works really well as a defatter. So we're simply gonna fill this guy up. And not sure if you can see it, but all the fat is now sitting in a thin layer right on top, so we can go right out the bottom with our clean turducken stock, leaving all the fat behind. And now I'm gonna park this in the freezer for a little bit to cool down because it's still pretty toasty, while this goes into the fridge. And to make our sausage stuffing, we're gonna start out by melting 1 stick of butter. And once nice and melted, we'll go in with our sausage. This is some pork breakfast sausage that I made not too long ago, using the Chuds BBQ breakfast sausage mix and some ground pork. Going in. Oh God. And get that cooking down. And if you've ever been curious about making your own sausage, but you don't know where to start, this is a great place to start because you can just grind your own pork or go buy some ground pork. Make yourself some really good breakfast patties. And remember, Black Friday is coming. Shameless plug. But at this point, we're gonna just get this cooking down, crumble it up nicely, and brown it off a little bit. And after cooking down for about 5-10 minutes, we're starting to get some good browning on there, looking nice and crumbly and cooked through, starting to build up a fond on the bottom. Soon we go with our veg, including 1 diced onion, 4 ribs of celery, and we'll get that stirred in. And after sweating those down for a couple minutes, we'll go in with our garlic, our sage, some dry thyme, because I forgot to buy fresh, some freshly chopped rosemary, and get that stirred in to cook for a few minutes as well. And once that starts smelling absolutely incredible, we'll go in with some of our freshly made turducken stock, about 2 cups. Scrape the bottom, deglaze this pot, get all that fond up, that's good flavor. And also we're gonna let this start to cool down a little bit with the heat off. And then into a bowl over here, we're gonna go in with 3 eggs and get those nice and mixed up. And then in with another 2 cups of our freshly made stock, which has been fully chilled, by the way, because we don't want to cook these eggs. And then we'll slowly stream this in. Again, we're trying to temper the eggs here so they don't scramble on us, but I've done this recipe many times without issue. And lastly, in with our freshly chopped parsley, a pinch of kosher salt, and some freshly cracked black pepper. And once that's all come together, we can start going in with all of our bread, or at least as much will fit. I think I made too much bread. But it takes a lot more than you think because it's gonna absorb a lot of this liquid. So just little by little, I'm gonna keep chipping these in until it looks like stuffing. And just like that, our beautiful extra meaty, extra flavorful stuffing is done. Be sure to give that a taste and adjust for salt or anything it may need, but I'm very happy with this. And with our stuffing finally done, we can begin the gruesome and probably tedious process of building a turducken. So out of the fridge we come with this bird, the turkey that is, and we'll go skin side down. Still looks pretty brutal. And it was at this moment I realized that I kind of screwed up because I fully meant to leave the wings on the turkey and I definitely took them off. I was only supposed to take the wings off the chicken and the duck because you don't want bones inside the turducken, but the wings are supposed to stay on mostly for presentation reasons, obviously. So it'll still eat fine, but it might not look as good and it might be a little bit harder to tie up. But at this point I am too far into this to go buy another turkey and thaw it for a few days and start over. So we're just gonna have to roll with it. But first things first, we gotta lay down some seasoning. So today I'm going on with some Chuds BBQ poultry rub because it just makes sense and it tastes really good. So a nice healthy dusting. A lot of meat in this thing, so we need a lot of seasoning. Beautiful. And then we'll start going down with our stuffing that I did pop in the fridge for a little bit because we don't want to be putting ripping hot stuffing inside this raw bird. Just gonna kind of fill any low spots I'm seeing, like this cavity over here we can fill up a little bit just so it is nice and plump when it all gets tied together. Essentially wherever there was a bone, we'll go down with some stuffing. Something like that. And then comes the duck, which I'll go ahead and season the skin side now. Pat that in. And we'll go ahead and lay that right on top. Same formation, so breast on breast, leg on leg, and it's looking like a pretty good fit so far, which is a good thing. I know I was worried that the turkey might be too small, but we're not done yet, folks. And get this duck seasoned up as well. Same rub. And we'll go down with a little bit more stuffing. Although the gaps on the duck aren't nearly as big as the ones on the turkey, so I might have to sneak some underneath it just to kind of fill it out a little bit. But if you couldn't tell, first time doing this, so kind of learning as we go here. But I am focusing right on the inside, the middle, where the breast kind of dips down, where the two breasts come together, because that's going to be the centerpiece of this giant roast. And lastly, our chicken. Season it good, don't forget the sides. And hopefully, because we air dried these skins overnight on these internal layers, they should come out a little bit better, a little less gummy than if we didn't. But now, chicken goes on. Oh, this thing is going to be massive. Another healthy layer of rub on the meat side. Kind of question every decision you've ever made in your life that led up to this weird moment. And go down with some more stuffing. And now for the difficult, awkward part, which is we got to sew this thing up and get it all tied up somehow. And I don't know how to do this, because I suppose you could go chicken, then duck, then turkey, but I kind of just want to fold this whole thing together like a big burrito, a big meat burrito. That's an awkward look. I think I'm just going to start down here between the legs. I got some butcher's twine and a butcher's needle. I'm just going to kind of try to get these two legs tied together, something like that. Maybe I'll start with a knot. Definitely want to make sure we get plenty of meat tied up so we're not just going skin through skin, because that'll likely rip, although I'm very inexperienced with sewing meat together. Well, I did that backwards, didn't I? What have I done? That's fine. Snip that off. We'll put the needle on the other end of the string. Do a triple knot for good measure. Snip the tip. All right, back in action. Just trying to get this thing plumped up together. Make sure it's all fitting nice and snug. And now we're just going to kind of go right down the middle here and get this thing all sewed together. Something tells me my mom is not enjoying this view right now. Tie that up, and we're just going to work our way down, I think. But if you guys have any pro tips for a better way to do this, please let me know down below. This is awkward. Pull it through with a string that is way too long. All right, surgery has begun, folks. This is one of those moments where I wish I got a new neighbor that would just kind of pop their head over the fence with a howdy neighbor. What the hell are you doing, boy? Oh, you know, just tying three birds together. All right, we've got the back sewed up, looking very plump and hilarious. And now we come to the unfortunate end where I should have two nice wings right here, but I removed them. But we did leave all that extra neck skin on, so hopefully we can kind of close it up and still make it look like a roast beast or something. And I guess I'm just gonna keep stabbing and tying until this starts coming together. Just basically sewing up all these seams. I'm really glad that I found this needle. Found this very last minute. I was just gonna try to wing it with a probe or something, but this would be really difficult without it. All right, got the back all stitched up. This thing is absolutely gigantic. So let's go ahead and flip her over for an even more unappealing sight. Other than that butthole though, looking pretty good. Now I need to see if I can get this shut. Don't know if I can. Don't want to leave the butthole wide open though. Maybe if I tie these up. Ooh, there we go. That'll hide it. So for starters, I'm going to take some string and just kind of tie it around one of these drumsticks. Here comes the fuzz. I swear this is legal. Then I'm going to wrap it around this one. Get that tied up. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and truss this whole thing so it just stays nice and plump, although it might not even need it. That looks so ridiculous. Take a loop, slide underneath, come through right around the drumsticks, right, and tie that off, something like that. Make another loop and repeat the process. Do this a few times all the way down the body. Loop-de-loop and pull. Nice and tight on this end. No, we'll tie it off. And there we have it, folks. My first turducken, quite possibly the last. Man, that is bizarre looking. So now all we gotta do is season the skin side of the turkey itself. And for that, I'm gonna go on with some good old-fashioned kosher salt and do a dry brine to hopefully get some nice crispy skin in that golden brown hue. So we're just gonna do a nice dusting of kosher salt all over the exterior. Don't forget the sides. And then we'll go ahead and roll this big baby over and do the top as well. Beautiful. And just like that, all tied up, dry brined, and ready to go into the fridge overnight. And that's gonna allow time for that salt to penetrate into the meat, let that skin dry out and air dry on this wire rack, so it gets nice and crispy and nice and smoky tomorrow. Good God. One dry brine later. Out of the fridge, this turducken comes and is looking absolutely beautiful. No visible salt, which is a good thing, meaning it went all the way into the meat, and that skin is in fact looking nice and dry. But we're gonna add a few more things before we cook it off. First of which is some duck fat to stay on brand, but any fat you got will work just fine. And this is just gonna help that skin start to get nice and crispy and act like a binder because it is pretty dry. And I wanna add some extra flavors to the top of this. This feels weird. Ribbed. And then some Chuds BBQ 16 mesh black pepper. Just a nice light dusting. We're not making a brisket here, you know what I mean? But just for that Texas look, a little extra flavor, help with the presentation. Followed by some granulated garlic. Again, lovely flavor, and it will help with that golden brown color. Also on sale at chudsbbq.com, just like the duck fat and the pepper. And that's gonna do it. We don't need to add any more salt because it's been dry brined, plus all the rub and sausage and whatnot on the inside. So really all we gotta do now is fire up the pit. Although he can be pesky, I'm still thankful for that snake in my boot. And on the pit we go. Got the old offset here fired up with a nice post oak fire. And I'm putting this on while the thing is still coming up to temp, while it's nice and smoky, to hopefully get some more color on this bird. But I think for the most part, we're gonna be rocking around 275, 300 on this cook, so it doesn't take too long. I've also got it on a wire rack to keep it nice and clean and make moving it around and transporting it a little bit easier. So we're gonna slowly bring this up to about 275 and let it rock. And I'm guessing this is probably gonna be like a 6 or 7 hour cook, maybe even a little bit longer, because I did weigh that thing last night and it's clocking in right at 15 pounds on the dot, which is a lot of poultry to get up to 160 degrees internal. And I don't think I've ever cooked poultry for that long before, so we might have to come wrap this up at some point so it doesn't get too dark. But again, I'm just gonna take you guys along for the ride on this one and let the smoke roll. And while that turducken smokes away, let's go ahead and start getting everything else ready. Starting out with the homemade cranberry sauce. Made this a few years back and it was absolutely incredible. So into a pot we go in with 1 bag of fresh cranberries, as well as a cup of sugar. And let that start cooking down and macerating. And while that cooks down, we'll go in with some orange zest, as well as the orange juice. That liquid will help everything start to break down. Starting to cook down nicely, getting nice and syrupy in there. So now we'll go in with some freshly grated ginger, as well as 1 cinnamon stick and a few Star Anise. Get those mixed in, that's gonna add some lovely flavor. And then a shot of bourbon. Oops. And we're just gonna let this cook down until all the cherries have popped and burst and it's starting to look like a nice thick cranberry sauce. God, that smells good. And pretty quickly, once all the juice is released from the cranberries, it'll come up to a boil. Also gonna hit it with a little pinch of salt just to get it started. Just cook it till it is nice and thick. Probably about 10 minutes. And just like that, in no time at all, this is thickened up very nicely, but we still got some chunks in there. So you could leave it like this if you want, but there's a couple of cranberries that hadn't quite burst yet, which is totally fine. But if you did want that more smoothed, jellied effect, first pop out the cinnamon and the Star Anise, and then give it the old buzz. And just like that, our super simple homemade cranberry sauce is done. Looking good. Up next, let's knock out a green bean casserole. And once shaved nice and thin on the old mandolin, I'm gonna pour in a little bit of buttermilk and let these soak for about 5-10 minutes. And then in a separate bowl, we'll go in with about a cup of Wondra Flour. Grab some of these onions that have been soaking for about 10 minutes or so, really nothing too crazy. Drain them off a little bit, and then into the flour, and get those evenly tossed. And once evenly tossed, and there's no clumps or lumps or anything like that, and put these in a sieve and just kind of shake off some of that extra flour, just to try to keep the fryer a little bit more clean. We got some beautifully coated onions. And now we repeat with the rest. And then over the deep deep fryer, got some oil fired up to 375 degrees, and simply enough, in we go. Gonna do this in batches. And after just a few seconds, does not take long, out these come. We're gonna drain these on a paper towel when they are nice and golden brown. And of course, fresh out of the fryer. Gonna hit them with a nice big pinch of salt and repeat the process. And just like that, fresh out of the fryer, we have got a bunch of some beautiful crispy fried onions, and you're gonna wanna make a lot of these because they are absolutely fantastic. As for the green beans, I've got some lovely trimmed up green beans here, but they are a little long, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut these all in half. And once trimmed up, I got a big pot of water here up to a boil. We're gonna go in with a big fat pinch of salt, and we're gonna blanch these real quick. Probably about 4 or 5 minutes. And once they're looking nice and green and nice and crispy, out these come right into an ice bath. Just shock them and halt the cooking process. Helps preserve the color as well. 6 hours later on the dot, and I think it's finally time to check in on this turducken. Looking beautiful, nice golden brown. Definitely got a little dark, but I'm not calling that too dark. Got some good golden brown on there. I thought about foiling up these legs a few times, but I didn't do that. But I've been checking the internal temp and the deepest part in the stuffing in all the birds, and we're rocking at least 155 all over, so now off this comes. That truly is a magnificent beast. And I did come through a few times while it was cooking and hit it with the old duck fat spray, trying to make sure it's nice and crispy, but mostly looking nice and shiny and getting nice and flavorful. So now I'm gonna let this rest down, and I'm probably gonna pop it in the food warmer for a little bit. And that's because I just had some guests show up. We got Joe Yim, hey buddy, and Guga.
Hey!
How's it going, boys?
I'm very excited. It looks sick, bro.
Smells so good.
You know what that looks like? A lot of work.
Yep. Certainly
A tremendous
is.
amount of work.
Now, Guga, you're only in town for one night, is that correct?
That's correct.
And when Guga shows up to your house and says he wants to go out to dinner, you don't say no. So I'm going to park this in the warmer, and we're going to come revisit it in a little bit, but it might be a lot darker.
Guess what we're gonna eat, Brad? Steak.
Classic. Should have known. One hangout session with Guga and Joe later, and let's get back to this green bean casserole. We're going to go into a 12-inch cast iron with a knob of butter. Get that melting down. And once that butter is nice and hot, in we go with our mushrooms. And we'll let those cook down for a couple minutes. Going with a big fat pinch of salt at this point as well. And after about 10 minutes of cooking down, these should look really nice, shrunken up a little bit, taking on some color. So then we'll go in with our garlic and get that stirred in. And we'll also go in with some all-purpose flour, creating a roux, which will help thicken up our sauce. And once we've cooked the raw edge off of that flour and that garlic is smelling nice and fragrant, in we go with our turducken stock. And this is what it should look like after it's been chilled and defatted. Nice and jiggly, nice and gelatinous. Whoops. And once up to a simmer, it should react with all that flour and be pretty thick. So now we can go in with our half and half, as well as some freshly cracked black pepper. I'm also going to throw in a sprig of rosemary, let that kind of steep in there while we bring this back up to a simmer and reduce it for probably about 10 minutes until it gets nice and thick. And after about 10 minutes, this is looking pretty thick, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that rosemary out. Also going to go in with some white wine vinegar just to brighten this up a little bit, but it's looking pretty thick. Nothing is burning on the bottom, which is good. So now we can go in with a couple handfuls of our beautiful crispy onions that I cannot stop snacking on. They are incredibly tasty. And if you've never made these onions before, I highly recommend it. And then in with all of our green beans. And try and get this all folded together. You can go on with another big fat pinch of salt just to salt those green beans. They were blanched in salty water, but I just tasted one and it needs a little more. Smells so good. And lastly, we'll top this off with a bunch of our super tasty crispy onions. And at this point, all you gotta do is toss it in a 350-degree oven for about 20-30 minutes, which you could do right now if you're making this last minute, or you can set it aside and then throw it in the oven right before you serve. Next up, let's make some dinner rolls, because it's pretty much mandatory at this point. Starting with our water and our eggs, our sugar, and our yeast. And give that a quick little mix. Followed by some bread flour and some Wondra Flour. And this is basically a pre-gelatinized cooked flour. I don't use it all the time for frying. This is a really cool ingredient to have, especially for making gravy and things like that. But in bread making, my theory is that it should work out similarly to how a tangzong works, like in Japanese milk bread, where they'll take some of the flour, hydrate it, cook it down to gelatinize the starches, and then mix that in with the rest of the ingredients. But I'm not sure if it's gonna work. So I guess we'll find out today and see if these are nice and fluffy. And in the same effort to make things nice and soft and nice and fluffy, in we go with some dough conditioner and some milk powder. Can't forget the salt. And let that come together. And once it's all come together into a shaggy dough ball, in we go with all of our butter. And now we're gonna let that knead for about 6 to 8 minutes. And once everything's looking nice and smooth and pulling away cleanly from the sides of the bowl, out it comes. Beautiful smooth ball of dough, and now into a grease bowl this goes for the next hour, probably an hour and a half, to double in size and get nice and poofy. And once our dough has doubled in size, out it comes. Boop, punch all the air out, and now we're gonna portion it out into some 50-gram dough balls. And once all weighed out, we'll go ahead and tuck all the seams to the underside for a nice smooth topped ball, pinching those shut, and then give it the old table roll till it's nice and smooth and a nice taut ball, like that. And today I'm feeling like cooking these in a cast iron pan, kind of Parker House roll style. So I got these in a nicely greased up cast iron. Now we're gonna cover these up and let them proof for the next probably hour or so. As for the rest, straight up baking sheet. And after about an hour, these are looking nice and poofy and absolutely beautiful, if I do say so myself. So now we're gonna hit these with an egg wash. This is 1 beaten egg plus 1 egg yolk and a splash of water. Hopefully these come out nice and dark golden brown. And after these are thoroughly covered, into a 375-degree oven, these go for probably about 20 minutes. And just like that, fresh out of the oven, I did rub some melted butter on the tops of these to give them that nice lovely shine, and these are looking absolutely beautiful. So now I'm gonna let these cool down a little bit. Next up, it's not Thanksgiving without some mashed potatoes. Got some Yukon Golds peeled and chopped up in a big pot of boiling water here. We're going to salt that heavily and boil these until nice and tender. And once probing, nice and tender, out these come into a colander to drain. And then we pass them through the old potato ricer. And then in a pot, we'll go in and melt a couple sticks of butter. And once that's nice and hot, we'll go in with some herbs, including some rosemary, some thyme, and a little bit of sage. Really trying to drive home those holiday flavors. A couple crushed cloves of garlic as well. Let those steep and infuse in the hot butter for a little bit. And after steeping and infusing for about 5, maybe 10 minutes, I'm gonna go in with some cream or some milk, or today, some half and half, a little bit of both. And then over the potatoes we go. I'm going through a strainer here to catch any leaves of rosemary or thyme or something like that. And we're just gonna gently fold this all together because we don't wanna overwork it. We don't want it to be too soupy either. A little bit more. Starting to look very good. So I'm gonna go in with a pinch of salt and some white pepper and start dialing this in. And just like that, after tasting and adjusting for salt levels and creamy levels, this beautiful fluffy mashed potato is done. So good. And with our turducken resting and all of our fixins done, the only thing left is to knock out a quick gravy, which starts out by melting down a 1/4 cup of butter. And once nice and hot and nice and melted, in we go with a 1/4 cup of some flour. And we're gonna whisk that up to make a blonde roux. And once that's cooked down a little bit, it's starting to take on a little bit of color. We've cooked off the raw edge of the flour. In we go with 3 cups of our lovely turducken stock. Just a little bit at first so we don't get any clumpage. And then we can go in a little bit more gradually. And now we're gonna bring that back up to a simmer. And once up to a boil, it'll hit maximum thickness, so then you can just reduce it down to however thick you want it to be. But that is looking pretty good to me. So to finish it off, give it a little pinch of salt and some freshly cracked black pepper. Be sure to taste and adjust, but our lovely gravy is done. And at long last, I think it's finally time to carve into this big old turducken. A little bit darker than I was aiming for, but honestly, it looks a little bit more like a barbecue turducken at this point. But if you've seen any of my other Thanksgiving videos, you know what's about to happen. Got myself some really hot clarified butter here that I'm gonna infuse with some more aromatics, like some rosemary, some thyme, careful now, and some sage, mostly because that's all the herbs I had left over. And then to add some more flavor and re-crisp the skin, I'm just gonna pour this all over. Oops. Oh, there we go. Now it's looking a little more golden. It's also nice if you let it hang out at room temp for a little bit while you're getting everything else ready, because this will help warm it up a little bit and add some wonderful richness and, of course, more flavor. Beautiful. Oh, that is still hefty. Now remember, this is fully tied up, so first thing we need to do is get these strings off of here. Kind of the nice thing about doing one string instead of a bunch of little ones is you can know you get them all, at least for this main truss. Sounding feeling crispy though. And then we've got the underside string as well, which is probably gonna be a little bit more challenging. Ooh, nice and tender down here though. Just gotta pull it through without this thing falling apart. And just like that, string removed. Go ahead and flip this bad boy back over. And I think we just gotta cut it right down the middle. After all that work, I don't even think I wanna cut it open, but we must. Sounds crispy. And then the big reveal. Oh, it looks like a map. That looks pretty good though. No air pockets or anything like that. Looking nice and juicy, nice and tight. Pretty happy about that, folks. And to assemble our big spread, we've got a whole bunch of turducken, probably 12 pounds, maybe more. We've got ourselves some lovely green bean casserole. Very excited about that. The fluffiest mashed potatoes that ever did potato. Some of our homemade cranberry sauce for those who partake. Some of these beautiful, incredibly light and fluffy dinner rolls. Oh, love it. Had a little bit of extra stuffing left over as well, so cook that off. Pop that on the side over here. And of course, everybody's favorite part, the lovely homemade smoky turducken gravy. Oh, just look at that. I'm getting ready, folks. You know, this really was a labor of love, folks, but that's what Thanksgiving is all about, and I gotta tell you, I am ready to dive on in. Let's do it. But first, we gotta get some slices out of this bad boy. That's wild looking. Yeah, that was not the dismount I was hoping for. But you know what? Once it's on a plate, covered in gravy, please, there you go, comes back together for a nice little slice. There we go. It's a little more like it. Beautiful. It's like carving a big old prime rib made out of 3 different birds. I gotta find the taste testers. Ladies.
Yes.
Can I interest you in some turducken and all the other normal Thanksgiving fixins that we've come to know and love?
So ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I stayed up late for this.
Have you ever had a turducken before?
I don't think so.
I don't think I have either.
If I have, it was subpar.
Well, hopefully this one isn't, but let's go ahead and find out. Turkey
Middle?
is the outer ring. The darker meat, that's the duck, and then the chicken's on the very center.
How do you suggest doing this?
I don't know. It's not the easiest thing to eat.
I'm really excited.
Wow.
Ooh! Oh, that tender is
Right
turkey.
off the bat,
Okay, I want the duck first.
the duck, I had like a little piece of duck fat and the fork went right through it.
Absolutely.
Not often we use forks on this channel, but
Yeah.
Oh man,
that duck looks good. I was worried about what duck skin would do when it's inside,
it's perfect.
but it looks good. Ooh! Oh yeah, that's soft.
It's so juicy. Okay, I need to get into some of this too.
Get in there.
How long did this one take you, Brad?
About 4 days.
Worth it. Look at that beaut.
Yeah, it's funny, the turducken, I always thought it was just a showpiece, because you look at that on the table, it's
It's
like,
so
wow.
pretty.
When you slice it up, it kind of all just falls apart. But then again, what is a Thanksgiving plate, if not just a bunch of stuff covered in
Yeah.
gravy?
It's my favorite
speaking
meal
of.
of all times.
Oh yeah, don't forget the gravy. I'm surprised how well cooked all 3 different birds are.
No, they're the exact, like, cooked through the same. Nothing's overdone. It's all tender.
The chicken on the inside is just as juicy as the turkey on the outside.
Tinda. Thanksgiving is probably my favorite holiday food.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
Ooh, that gravy. I mean, if I could pick a favorite center, it would be the duck.
Yeah, we need to eat more duck around here. And also more gravy.
One time, my mom's friend made a turkey. She goes, "Is it dry? It's a little dry, right?" And I go, "Yeah, that's pretty dry." And my mom kicked me under the table. And I said, "What? It is. It's dry."
That's why we have you around for these taste tests, because you're not going to lie to people.
I can't lie. I'm honest, Abe.
I also put some pork stuffing in here, so it's a turducken
Oh my
stuffed with
gosh,
pork.
so many
Good Lord.
poultries.
And there's butter dumped on the outside, so that's from a cow. So sorry, vegans.
So good.
How'd that green bean casserole come out?
It's
I don't know
good. I like the green beans have a nice crunch, you know. A lot of people I think use like just cans. You can tell those
Canned
are
green
fresh.
beans?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's a lovely little green bean casserole. I love a good green bean casserole.
Me too.
Can I tell another story?
Story time with Lauren.
So I only had Mexican Thanksgivings growing up, and I never had green bean casserole until my dad married this lady, and her family was very Southern. I proclaimed, I go, "Is this what white Thanksgiving is?" And it was green bean casserole, and it was like my favorite thing I'd ever had.
I think the answer is a solid yes to that. How these buns?
Yeah, I mean,
Beautiful.
everything is so freaking delicious.
And they look fake.
Yeah, they do.
I want this big piece of that. Yeah, I'm cutting this with a spoon right now. I just want everyone to realize that.
I'm a little upset with how much I like this, because it was the most labor-intensive thing I think
Yeah.
I've ever done in my
A
life.
true labor of love.
I mean, I feel like you could make this during crawfish season. Just saying.
Stuff it with jambalaya or something.
Boudin.
This is a Cajun
Egg.
thing. I'm pretty sure it was
Yeah.
invented down in Louisiana. There's a big beef about who created it first between a couple different spots. Yeah, I did a little bit of research, but that was like 3 months ago, and I don't remember. I'm pretty sure John Madden invented it, actually.
And that was the first time I heard about it.
Mashed potatoes and gravy, though, that's all you really need in life. All right, ladies, what is the best bite on the table, do you think, for Chuds Giving 2025?
Turducken.
I mean, yeah.
Emphasis on the duck.
No, actually, sorry, it's the cranberry.
Oh, yeah. No one even touched it. I forgot about
I
that.
had a little bit.
She's had some.
No, I don't think that it's the piece de resistance.
I'm glad you
It's
said
all
that.
really good, but
It's
I can't
such a treat.
argue.
Because if I put all that effort in deboning 3 birds, and you're like, those mashed potatoes. Not to discount the taters at all, though.
No, taters
Correct.
are
All of it
never.
is so delicious.
That is always my favorite on the plate, but this is the star.
Yeah.
I'm struggling and I want to eat more so bad.
Yeah, I'm like having a flavor addiction where I'm like full, but I want more flavor in my mouth.
I'm gonna have to box the rest up.
Yeah, all right, we're going to finish this entire meal off camera. And with this bite of turducken, I think it is time for the official taste test. All right, y'all, and that is it. That is how to make an absolutely fantastic scratch-made smoked turducken with all the Thanksgiving fixins, including some homemade dinner rolls, and of course, the world's best turducken gravy. I highly recommend giving this one a try. You know, it was a few steps, but it was a lot of fun, and it was absolutely fantastic. Honestly, a lot better than I thought it would be. And this is definitely one of those recipes that's more for the weekend warriors who are looking for a good, fun project to do. It was all pretty straightforward, because once you know how to debone one bird, you can debone any bird. And the only real tricky part that I was worried about was sewing the whole thing up, and I did a pretty bad job of it, and it still worked out really well. And the flavors were absolutely incredible. Like I said, I did not expect to like it as much as I did. I was a little worried about the chicken skin and the duck skin in there being all soft, but really I think that was my favorite part. You know, the soft duck skin reminded me of that Chinese braised pork belly I did at the beginning of the year. Very succulent, very delicious. The exterior skin was nice and smoky, nice and crispy, and sometimes it's fun to challenge your culinary chops and try and knock out a magnificent beast that is the turducken. It's something I'll probably make again someday, but not for a while. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Team Chud members. Thank you for supporting this channel and allowing me to keep making all these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace.